Welcome back, APUSH students. Today is chapter 14 of the American Pageant, titled Forging the National Economy. If you don't know the American Pageant, it's fine because the content is still going to be the same. I'm going to be going over all the key terms and notes for this chapter that helped me get a 5, so I encourage you to take notes along as well. Self-reliance, essay written about people on the frontier. The essay showed a larger point that radical individualism and loneliness were main struggles of the people in the West, and the romanticization of frontier populations shielded this reality. So the people who wanted to move west and be, those yeoman farmers who lived on their own and made a living for themselves, it was great, but the individualism of it and the whole nature of being spread out in the West with nature was really harming the people. Rendezvous system, meeting of scavengers and traders. The system made for a successful trade between frontier fur trappers and traders, connecting the frontier economy with the rest of America. Ecological imperialism, the act of wiping out species for goods like fur. It revealed the aggressiveness of the frontier population to scavenge for profit, and also showed the many natural advantages that the West had. George Catlin, painter and avid conservationist. His opposition to ecological imperialism led to a growing movement for appreciation of land and conservationism. This eventually led to the national park system. So this is where you can start to see the beginnings of the environmentalist movement, which really didn't come to fruition actually like 100 years later in the late 20th century. Urbanization, increasing population in large cities. Although urbanization made cities great economic forces, it also brought its downsides by increasing classism, declining infrastructure and safety, and the spread of disease. So a lot of urban cities became sort of great at the top in those large, nice buildings, but a lot of people lived in slums and in really unsafe environments, and it really separated those two classes of people. This is a long name, but Molly Maguire's is probably the more popular one. Societies aiding the poor Irish immigrants. They help bring the Irish immigrants out of misery and fight off the higher forces of America that were pinning them down, like wealthy landlords, and obviously racism. Tammany Hall, popular political society in New York. Many enabled Irish immigrants took power over politics in New York and other cities and dominated institutions like the police force. So the Irish really found political power in these assemblies like Tammany Hall. Know Nothing Party, the American Party. They were known for secretiveness but did not hide their hatred and fear of immigrants. They advocated for very harsh policies against immigration. This was a very nativist party. Xenophobia, prejudice or fear of immigration. Xenophobia became prominent in many Americans' mind who wanted to preserve the purity in America. This encouraged xenophobic writings and art promoting the fear of immigrants, specifically of the Catholic origin, because remember, America was founded on Protestantism. Awful Disclosures, book depicting immigrants as bad. The piece of writing was very popular in promoting xenophobia, and writings like this can be linked to violence against immigrants. There is a lot of anti-Irish violence, for example. Industrial Revolution, influx of mass-produced goods. It was slow to come to America as land for agriculture was cheaper than becoming a factory worker. In result, European mass-produced goods had a big advantage in American markets, like British-produced goods were very popular. Mechanization, introduction of automatic machines. Mechanization made both manufacturing in the North and agriculture in the South more efficient and therefore more profitable. Although the industrial movement wouldn't take hold until later, mechanization boosted the economy immediately. Cotton gin, invention that made cotton production more efficient. The cotton gin made the cotton industry exponentially more profitable, and the entire South became economically dependent on crops that they could use the cotton gin. It also revived the slave trade as slaves became more useful because agriculture became more profitable. So essentially the cotton economy and cotton cultivation was actually on a decline, but now the cotton gin stepped in. Cotton was easier to cultivate, and now slaves are becoming more profitable again because the more slaves in combination with the cotton gin, you can just pump out cotton at a rate never seen before. Interchangeable parts, concept where any part could fit any like item. It became the basis for assembly lines, which was more efficient in mass production. The interchangeable parts gave way to a northern industrial revolution. This came to fruition especially in the auto industry later in the early 20th century. Sewing machines / textile machinery, production of clothing. Northern industrialization boosted as it began to dominate the clothing market with efficient textile production using new machinery. This was yet another industry that boomed because of mechanization. Patent office controlling investors' patents. The clerk of the patent office closed after they viewed that every worthwhile invention had actually been taken by a patent, symbolizing the rapid industrialization. Obviously, this is just an anecdote, but this is how much industry was booming because people thought that we were running out of ideas as a society. Limited liability principle that limited risk of investors. The limited risk encouraged more people to invest in businesses, specifically northern industrial ventures. Larger corporations became more popular because these corporations were becoming better at gathering capital, which then they could use to produce more products. Samuel Morse, inventor of the telegraph wires. It connected cities throughout the country, making the sharing of information easier. American inventions became more prominent on the world stage, early evidence of the growth of communication through technology. So the inventor of the telegraph wires, which obviously eventually led to telephones and telecommunications, this was a huge win for America. Commonwealth v. Hunt, case where people earn their right to unionize. It was enlightened precedent that expanded workers' rights and their ability to strike for better condition. So this was the sort of beginnings of the labor movement. Factory girls working at industrial mills. Their involvement in the labor market foreshadowed greater economic independence for women and their ability to buy their own things. Lowell, Mass., a prominent mill town. Rich owners like the Boston Associates pointed to Lowell as a showcase for the successes of northern industrialization and factory culture. Cult of domesticity, married women cultural movement. It shed a positive light on the importance of women as homemakers and gave them more influence on shaping the character of their families. So although this wasn't some sort of radical women's movement that increased their rights or anything like that, it did give more importance to how women play a role in society, which of course would have long-standing impact as the women's movement moved forward. Steel plow / McCormick reaper, inventions that made farming more efficient. So this is where you can see the mechanization in the agricultural industry. The inventions helped Western farmers, the most, who could now better manage the thick soil, which exploded agriculture in the West and opened them up to new markets. Turnpike / Erie Canal and other sort of transportation technology, major forms of transportation that could move large shipments. All of these forms of transportation in combination led to a more efficient and thriving economy and connected America both domestically and with foreign areas like Europe. Transportation encouraged movement, bled opportunity, and the economy thrived as a result. Robert Fulton, inventor of the steamboat. His invention transformed water travel, which made it so water could be traveled both upstream and downstream, therefore increasing the capacity of water transportation in both ways. Transportation revolution, the vast increase in all means of transportation domestically. The increase of transportation binded the nation together, weaving all regions in all directions. This led to a greater national economy, but also led to specialization, which greatly impacted the Civil War. So with all this transportation, regions are becoming more interconnected, so regions who are better suited for certain things became very reliant on just that thing. So sort of the North became just strictly industry, South strictly agricultural, crops that were better in the Midwest versus the West versus the South. So everything became very isolated, but it was also interconnected. So that was kind of just a weird process that happened because of transportation. Market revolution, the development of the interconnected national economy. The market revolution expanded the national economy and gave more opportunity for people to be rich and for people to escape poverty. It also had positive social effects like the separation of home and the workplace. You see the cult of domesticity for women versus men who were working, therefore making the home more of a refuge space, so children were being raised better. It did have its downsides, as many poor people were washed out, and there was much controversy over the relationship between government policy and the economy. So when I say like poor people washed out, it means that people who do not have skills that could work these jobs with machinery, they were becoming very left behind in society. And that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next chapter, and goodbye.